Let me ask you something. Have you ever achieved something big? A goal you worked hard for? A dream you finally reached? And then you got there, and you waited for the feeling, the happiness, the satisfaction, the sense that, yes, this is it. This is what I was working for. But the feeling never came. Or it came for a moment, and then it disappeared. And you were left thinking, is this really it? Is this all there is? If that has ever happened to you, you are not broken. You are not ungrateful. And you are definitely not alone. Millions of people around the world feel exactly the same way. They have jobs. They have families. They have phones full of people to talk to. They are busy every single day. But deep inside, something feels missing. Something feels empty. And they cannot explain what it is. That emptiness has a name. And it has a reason. And most importantly, it has a solution. Today we are talking about one of the most important books written in our time. The name of this book is The Meaning of Your Life, Finding Purpose in an Age of Emptiness. It is written by Harvard professor and happiness expert Arthur C. Brooks. This is a #1 New York Times bestseller. Praised by Oprah Winfrey, the Dalai Lama, and Simon Sinek. This book is not about positive thinking. It is not about motivational quote. It is backed by real science, real philosophy, real answers. Arthur Brooks spent years studying one question. Why do so many people feel empty, even when they have everything? And what can we actually do about it? By the end of this video, you will understand why you feel the way you feel. You will have a clear map to find what has been missing, and you will know exactly where to start looking. So stay with me. This one is going to change something inside you. Let us begin. Chapter 1: The Meaning of Meaning. The year was 1879. And one of the greatest writers who ever lived was sitting alone in his study. His name was Leo Tolstoy. He had written War and Peace. He had written Anna Karenina, two of the greatest novels in the history of human literature. He was famous across the world. He was wealthy beyond what most people could ever dream of. He had a loving family, a beautiful home, a name that every educated person on earth already knew. By every measure that the world could offer, Leo Tolstoy was a success, and Leo Tolstoy wanted to end his life, not because he had nothing, but because nothing felt like it meant anything. He wrote in his diary, "I have everything, and I feel nothing." He started hiding the ropes in his house. Because he was afraid he would use them. He stopped carrying a gun on his walks. Because he did not trust himself. This was not a poor man crying out of desperation. This was one of the most accomplished human beings who had ever lived, and he was completely empty inside. Arthur C. Brooks opens this book with Tolstoy's story. And he does it for one very important reason. Because Tolstoy's story is not just a story from the 19th century. It is the story of millions of people living right now, today. In this age, the world has changed, but the emptiness has not. People today have more than any generation before them. More technology, more comfort, more access to information, entertainment, and connection. And yet surveys show that more people than ever feel that their life lacks meaning. Young people especially. Research shows that in the last 2 decades, feelings of emptiness, purposelessness, and depression have risen sharply. Not in poor countries only. In wealthy ones too. Sometimes even more so. Arthur Brooks calls this the age of emptiness, and he says it is not imaginary. It is real. It is serious. And it is happening for a specific reason. The modern world has rewired our brains. Technology, speed, distraction, social media, all of it has made it harder for the human brain to think deeply, to sit quietly, to ask the hard questions, like, why am I here? What is the point of all this? What am I actually living for? These are not weak questions. They are the most important questions a human being can ask. But the noise of the modern world keeps drowning them out. And so people stay busy. And stay empty. So what exactly is meaning? This is where Arthur Brooks does something remarkable. He does not give you a vague and poetic answer. He gives you a scientific one. He says, meaning is not just a feeling. It is not something that randomly shows up on a good day. Meaning has a structure, and that structure has 3 specific parts. The first part is called coherence. Coherence means your life makes sense to you. It means when you look at your story, the pieces connect. The struggles connect to the growth. The losses connect to the lessons. The past connects to where you are now. Without coherence, life feels random. Like things just happen and none of it means anything. Like you are just moving from one thing to the next with no thread connecting it all. Tolstoy had no coherence. He looked at his life and saw a collection of achievement, but no story, no thread, no reason for any of it. The second part is called purpose. Purpose means you have something pulling you forward, a reason to get up in the morning, a direction that feels worth moving toward. Purpose is not the same as a goal. A goal is a destination. Purpose is the reason you care about the destination. Without purpose, even achieving your goals feels hollow, because you reach the top and then you think, now what? That is exactly what Tolstoy experienced. He reached every goal he had set, and then stood there, wondering what it was all for. The third part is called significance. Significance means you feel that you matter, that your life has an impact on others, that if you were not here, something in the world would be different. Significance is not about being famous. It is not about being powerful. It is about knowing that your presence, your love, your work, your kindness makes a real difference to real people. When all 3 of these are present, coherence, purpose, and significance, you have meaning, not just a good day, not just a temporary feeling, a deep and lasting sense that your life is worth living. Meaning is not found, it is built. Here is the most important shift in this entire chapter. Most people treat meaning like a lottery, like it is something that some people are born with, something that lucky people stumble upon. And if you do not have it, you just wait and hope that one day it appears. Arthur Brooks says that is completely wrong. Meaning is not something that happens to you. Meaning is something you build. It is a skill. Like fitness. Like any skill worth having. It takes understanding. It takes practice. It takes intention. Tolstoy eventually found his way out of the darkness, not by getting more success, not by writing another great novel, but by completely changing what he was living for. He turned toward other people. He turned toward something bigger than himself. He found coherence in a new story, purpose in serving others, significance in the difference he could make, and the emptiness began to fill. That is what this book is about. Not motivation, not inspiration that fades by tomorrow morning. This is a practical guide, a map, step by step, built on science, philosophy, and the wisdom of the greatest thinkers who ever lived. And it starts with one honest question. Not, what is the meaning of life? That is too big, too abstract. The question this book asks is simpler, and much more powerful. What is the meaning of your life? Your story? Your purpose? Your significance? And the answer is not waiting somewhere out in the world. It is waiting inside you. You just have to know where to look. This was Chapter 1 of The Meaning of Your Life by Arthur C. Brooks. Chapter 2 is coming next, and it is going to show you exactly why this emptiness has gotten so much worse in the modern world. The numbers are shocking, and the reason behind them is something most people never expected. Stay with book verse. Chapter 2 will change how you see the world around you. Chapter 2. The Psychogenic Epidemic. Something is wrong. Not with you personally. Not with your family. Not with your city or your country alone. Something is wrong with the entire modern world, and the numbers prove it. In 2005, researchers started tracking how many people around the world felt that their life had meaning. The numbers were not perfect, but they were reasonable. Most people, in most countries, felt that life made sense, that there was a reason to keep going, that tomorrow was worth reaching. Then something happened, slowly at first, then faster, and faster. By 2024, those numbers had collapsed. Feelings of emptiness, purposelessness, and meaninglessness had nearly tripled. Not doubled, tripled, in less than 20 years. Arthur Brooks calls this the psychogenic epidemic, and he says this is one of the most serious crises of our time. The numbers that should stop you. Let us talk about young women specifically, because the data here is deeply alarming. In the early 2000s, around 48% of young women in America reported feeling that their life was meaningful. That is almost half. Not perfect, but hopeful. By the early 2020s, that number had collapsed to just 15%. 15%. That means 85 out of every 100 young women no longer felt that their life had real meaning. Think about that for a moment. These are not people living in poverty or war. Many of them are living in the wealthiest, most technologically advanced society in the history of humanity, and they feel empty. The same pattern appears in young men, in teenagers, in college students, in people in their 30s, 40s, and beyond. Depression rates have risen sharply. Anxiety disorders have multiplied. Suicide rates, in young people especially, have climbed to levels that experts describe as a public health emergency. Arthur Brooks is very clear. This is not weakness. This is not a personal failure. This is a cultural crisis, and it has a specific cause. What happened to the brain? Here is what Arthur Brooks explains with great care and precision. The human brain was not built for the world we live in today. For hundreds of thousands of years, the human brain evolved in a slow world. A world where change happened gradually. Where connection meant sitting with someone face to face. Where information arrived slowly. Where silence was normal. Where boredom was a regular part of life. And in that slow world, the brain learned to think deeply, to reflect, to ask big questions, to find meaning. But then the modern world arrived, And it arrived fast. Smartphones, social media, notifications every few seconds, endless streams of content, news that never stops, opinions that flood in from every direction, and the brain, which was built for slowness, was suddenly overwhelmed. It could not keep up. It adapted the only way it knew how. It got faster. It got shallower. It started skipping over the deep and slow parts of thinking. The parts that ask, "What does this all mean?" The parts that sit with hard questions. The parts that process suffering and find something worth holding on to. Those parts got quieter. And the emptiness got louder. The technology trap. Arthur Brooks does not say that technology is evil. He is very careful about that. Technology has done remarkable things for human life. But he points to something specific, something that the research now shows very clearly. Social media, in particular, has rewired the way the brain seeks connection. Real connection. Sitting with a friend, having a deep conversation, being truly known by another person. That kind of connection builds meaning. It builds significance. It answers the deep human need to matter to someone. But social media offers a different kind of connection. Fast. Surface level. Built on likes and comments and numbers on a screen. And the brain, which is always looking for the easiest path to reward, started choosing the fast version. Over and over again. Until the slow, deep, meaningful connection started feeling too hard, too boring, too much effort, and the fast, shallow version left people feeling more empty, not less. Because shallow connection does not fill the human need for meaning. It only makes the hunger stronger. This emptiness is not imaginary. Here is something Arthur Brooks says that matters deeply. Some people look at the mental health crisis today and say things like, "People are just soft these days," or "This generation does not know how to handle real problems." Arthur Brooks completely rejects that. He says the emptiness that people feel today is real. It is not weakness. It is not a character flaw. It is the natural response of a human brain that was built for one kind of world, suddenly living in a completely different one. The brain is doing exactly what it was designed to do. It is struggling because the environment has changed faster than the brain can adapt, and that struggle produces real pain, real depression, real anxiety, real loss of meaning. This is not imaginary. This is biology. And biology can be understood. And once understood, it can be worked with. That is the hope that this entire book is built on. You are not failing at life. Before we move to Chapter 3, I want you to hear this clearly. If you have been feeling empty, if you have been wondering what the point of it all is, if you have been going through the motions, feeling disconnected from your own life, you are not broken. You are not weak. You are not the problem. You are a human being living in a world that was not designed for your brain. And now you are starting to understand exactly what is happening and why. That understanding is the first step toward something better. Arthur Brooks says meaning is not lost. It is just waiting to be found. And this book is going to show you exactly where to look. If this chapter spoke to something real inside you, something you have been feeling but could not name, then please like this video right now. Share it with one person you know who needs to hear this, because the chances are they are feeling this too. They just do not have the words for it yet. Subscribe to Bookverse so you do not miss Chapter 3. Because in the next chapter, Arthur Brooks reveals the 3 building blocks of meaning, the exact structure that your brain needs to feel that life is worth living. And it is simpler than you might think. Stay with Bookverse. This journey is just getting started. Chapter 3. The 3 macronutrients of meaning. Think about food for a moment. Your body needs certain things to stay alive and healthy. Proteins, carbohydrate, fats. These are called macronutrient. If you are missing one of them for long enough, your body starts to break down. Not all at once. Slowly, quietly. You start feeling tired, then weak. Then something starts going wrong. And you cannot always tell which macronutrient is missing. You just know that something is off. Arthur Brooks says meaning works exactly the same way. Your soul, your inner life, your sense that life is worth living. All of it needs 3 specific things. 3 macronutrients. And if even one of them is missing, the emptiness begins. The 3 things your life needs. Arthur Brooks identifies 3 macronutrients of meaning. The first is enjoyment. The second is satisfaction. The third is meaning itself. Wait. Before you say, meaning is one of its own ingredient, let Brooks explain. He is not talking about a vague sense of meaning. He is talking about something very specific. Something that has a structure. Something that can be understood, measured, and built. And that structure has 3 parts of its own. Let us go through all of them one by one. Enjoyment, the first macronutrient. Enjoyment is not the same as pleasure. This is one of the most important points in this entire chapter. Pleasure is simple. You eat something sweet. You feel good for a moment. The sweetness fades, and you want more. That is pleasure. But enjoyment is deeper. Enjoyment happens when you experience something good with your full attention. When you are truly present. When the experience connects to something meaningful inside you. Brooks gives the example of listening to music. You can have music playing while you scroll your phone. That is pleasure. But if you sit down, close your eyes, and really listen, you feel something different. Something that stays with you. That is enjoyment. The difference is attention. Real enjoyment requires your full presence. And in a world of constant distraction, full presence is becoming harder and harder to find. Satisfaction, the second macronutrient. Satisfaction is different from enjoyment. Satisfaction comes from struggle, from working hard at something difficult, from trying, failing, trying again, and finally succeeding. Arthur Brooks says, satisfaction is the feeling you get after, not during. Think about finishing a hard workout. While you are doing it, it might feel terrible. But when it is over, something fills your chest. A quiet, powerful sense of, I did that. That is satisfaction. And here is the important thing. You cannot buy satisfaction. You cannot scroll your way to it. You cannot find it in easy things. Satisfaction only comes from doing something hard, and then doing it well. In a world that keeps making things easier and faster, satisfaction is becoming rarer and rarer, because fewer people are willing to sit with difficulty long enough to earn it. And when satisfaction disappears from a life, something essential is gone. The 3 parts of meaning. Now we come to the third macronutrient, and as Brooks explained, meaning itself has its own 3 parts. He calls them coherence, purpose, and significance. You heard about these in Chapter 1. But in this chapter, Brooks goes deeper. He explains exactly what each one looks like in a real life. Coherence, your life as a story. Coherence means your life makes sense to you. Think of your life as a story. Every story has a beginning, a middle, and a direction it is heading. When your life has coherence, you can look back at everything that happened, the good things, the bad things, the painful things, and you can see how they connect, how the hard times made you stronger, how the losses taught you something, how the struggle was actually taking you somewhere. Without coherence, life feels random. It feels like things just happen, and none of it means anything. Coherence is what transforms a collection of events into a story worth telling, and a story worth living. Purpose, the force that pulls you forward. Purpose is not a goal. This is a very important distinction that Brooks makes clearly. A goal is something you are trying to reach. Purpose is the reason you care about reaching it. A goal says, I want to build a successful business. Purpose asks, why does that matter to you? Who will it help? What will it mean? When you have purpose, you do not need motivation from outside. The pull comes from inside. You wake up knowing that what you do today matters, that your effort is going somewhere real. Without purpose, even the biggest achievements feel hollow, because you get there, and then you stand there, and think, now what? That is a life without purpose, and it is one of the loneliest feelings in the world. Significance, the need to matter. Significance is the third part of meaning, and it is the one that most people secretly hunger for the most. Significance means you feel that you matter, not to everyone, not to the whole world, but to someone, that your presence makes a difference, that if you were not here, something real would be missing. Arthur Brooks says this is one of the deepest needs of the human soul. Not fame, not power, not wealth, just the quiet knowledge that your life is touching other lives, that your love, your care, your effort is landing somewhere real, is making someone's life better, is leaving something behind. When significance is missing, you can be surrounded by people and still feel completely invisible. You can be busy every single day and still feel like none of it matters. Because being busy is not the same as being needed, and being connected is not the same as being significant. When all three come together, here is what Arthur Brooks wants you to understand from this chapter. Meaning is not a mystery. It is not luck. It is not something that some people are born with and others are not. Meaning is what happens when coherence, purpose, and significance are all present in your life at the same time. And the most important thing, all three of them can be built on purpose, with intention, one choice at a time. Your life does not need to be extraordinary for meaning to be possible. Your life just needs these three things. And the chapters ahead are going to show you exactly how to find them. This was Chapter 3 of The Meaning of Your Life. In Chapter 4, Arthur Brooks introduces one of the most dangerous traps that high-achieving people fall into. He calls it the striver's curse. And if you have ever worked incredibly hard, reached a goal, and still felt empty, Chapter 4 was written for you specifically. Stay connected to book verse. Chapter 4 is next. Chapter 4. The Striver's Curse. Imagine a man running as fast as he can. His eyes are fixed on a finish line ahead. He is focused. He is disciplined. He sacrifices sleep. He sacrifices time with family. He sacrifices rest. He pushes through pain. He pushes through doubt. He pushes through every obstacle that stands in his way. And one day, he crosses the finish line. He did it. He actually did it. He stands there, breathing hard, waiting for the feeling, the joy, the peace, the sense of, I made it. I can rest now. But the feeling does not come. Instead, something else happens. His eyes move forward, to another finish line, further ahead, and without even deciding to, he starts running again. This man is what Arthur Brooks calls a striver, and the trap he is caught in has a name. It is called the striver's curse. Who is a striver? A striver is someone who is always pushing for more. More success, more achievement, more recognition, more results. On the surface, this looks admirable, and in many ways it is. Strivers build companies. They create art. They change industries. They move the world forward. But Arthur Brooks points to a painful truth that most strivers never want to admit. The very drive that makes them successful is also the thing that makes them miserable, because a striver can never fully arrive. Not really. Every goal they reach immediately becomes the new starting point. Every achievement instantly feels like the bare minimum. Every success quickly turns into the thing they used to want. And the hunger never goes away. It just moves forward. Always out of reach. The arrival fallacy. Arthur Brooks introduces a powerful idea in this chapter. He calls it the arrival fallacy. The arrival fallacy is this belief: when I get there, I will finally be happy. When I get the promotion, I will be happy. When I get the money, I will be happy. When I get the house, the title, the recognition, then it will all feel worth it. Then I will feel complete. But Brooks says this is one of the most dangerous lies the mind tells itself. Because happiness is not waiting at the destination. The research proves this clearly and repeatedly. When people reach a goal they have worked toward for a long time, the happiness they feel is real. But it is also extremely short. In most cases within weeks, sometimes within days, the happiness fades, and they are back to baseline, wanting more, needing more, chasing more. This is not a personal failure. This is biology. And understanding the biology is the first step to breaking free from it. What dopamine is really doing. Here is where Arthur Brooks goes into the science. And it is fascinating. Most people think dopamine is the happiness chemical. They think when something good happens, the brain releases dopamine and you feel happy. But that is not quite right. Dopamine is not the reward. Dopamine is the wanting. Dopamine is the chemical that makes you chase things. It fires up when you are pursuing something, when you are working toward a goal, when you are getting closer to something you desire. And it is brilliant at its job. It keeps you moving. It keeps you striving. Keeps you one more step, one more push, one more effort away. But here is the problem. The moment you reach the goal, dopamine drops. Not slowly, fast. The brain immediately shifts attention to the next thing it wants, the next target, the next desire, and you are left standing at the finish line wondering why you do not feel better. This is not weakness. This is your brain doing exactly what it was designed to do. It was designed to keep you chasing, not to keep you satisfied. Satisfaction is not dopamine's job. And if you are trying to find lasting happiness through achievement alone, you are asking dopamine to do something it was never built to do. Proxy goals, chasing the wrong things. This leads to one of the most important ideas in this entire chapter. Arthur Brooks calls them proxy goals. A proxy goal is when you chase one thing, hoping it will give you something else. For example, you want to feel secure, so you chase money. You want to feel loved, so you chase status. You want to feel significant, so you chase fame. The money, the status, the fame. Those are proxy goals. You are not really after them. You are after what you believe they will bring you. Security, love, significance. But here is the painful truth. Proxy goals almost never deliver what you are actually looking for. You get the money, and you still feel insecure. You get the status, and you still feel unloved. You get the fame, and you still feel invisible inside. Because the real need was never the proxy. The real need was meaning. And meaning cannot be bought with achievement. It has to be built in a completely different way. Success and meaning are not the same. This is the central truth of Chapter 4. And it is one that most achieving people spend decades refusing to believe. Success and meaning are not the same thing. Success is what the world measures from the outside. Titles, numbers, result, achievements. Meaning is what you feel on the inside. Purpose, connection, significance, the sense that what you are doing actually matters. You can have enormous success and zero meaning. Tolstoy proved that. And you can have very little conventional success and a life overflowing with meaning. A parent who raises a kind child. A teacher who changes one student's life. A person who shows up every day for someone who needs them. These people may never be famous. They may never be rich. But they are not empty. Because they are not chasing proxy goals. They are living in direct contact with what actually matters. So what does a striver do? Arthur Brooks is not saying, stop working hard. He is not saying, give up your ambitions. He is not telling you to become comfortable with mediocrity. He is saying something far more precise. Work hard. Strive boldly. But know what you are actually working for. Know the difference between the goal and the real need behind it. Ask yourself, not just what do I want, but why do I want it? And whether getting it will actually give you what you are really looking for. Because if the answer is no, you are in the striver's curse, and the only way out is not to stop moving. It is to change direction. Toward something that can actually fill you. Toward coherence. Toward purpose. Toward significance. Toward meaning. This was Chapter 4 of The Meaning of Your Life. Chapter 5 is next, and it tackles one of the biggest enemies of a meaningful life, something most people do every single day without realizing the damage it is doing: distraction. And Arthur Brooks explains exactly how it steals your meaning, one scroll at a time. Stay with book verse. You can have enormous success and zero meaning. Tolstoy proved that. And you can have very little conventional success and a life overflowing with meaning. A parent who raises a kind child. A teacher who changes one student's life. A person who shows up every day for someone who needs them. These people may never be famous. They may never be rich. But they are not empty. Because they are not chasing proxy goals. They are living in direct contact with what actually matters. So what does a striver do? Arthur Brooks is not saying, stop working hard. He is not saying, give up your ambitions. He is not telling you to become comfortable with mediocrity. He is saying something far more precise. Work hard. Strive boldly. But know what you are actually working for. Know the difference between the goal and the real need behind it. Ask yourself, not just what do I want, but why do I want it? and whether getting it will actually give you what you are really looking for. Because if the answer is no, you are in the striver's curse, and the only way out is not to stop moving. It is to change direction toward something that can actually fill you, toward coherence, toward purpose, toward significance, toward meaning. This was Chapter 4 of The Meaning of Your Life. Chapter 5 is next, and it tackles one of the biggest enemies of a meaningful life, something most people do every single day without realizing the damage it is doing: distraction. And Arthur Brooks explains exactly how it steals your meaning, one scroll at a time. Stay with book verse. Chapter 5. The Doom Loop of Distraction. You pick up your phone, just for a moment, just to check one thing, and then something catches your eye. A headline, a video, a comment, and you keep scrolling. 5 minutes pass, then 10, then 30. You put the phone down, and you feel somehow worse than before you picked it up. Not better, not rested, not informed, just heavier, emptier, like something was quietly taken from you, and you are not imagining it. Something was. Arthur Brooks calls this the doom loop of distraction, and in this chapter, he explains exactly what it is doing to your brain and to your ability to find meaning. What doom scrolling actually does to the brain. Most people think scrolling through social media is a harmless way to relax, a little break, a way to switch off. But the research shows something very different. When you scroll through a feed of negative news, outrage, conflict, and comparison, your brain does not switch off. It switches on, into a very specific mode, a threat detection mode. Your brain starts scanning, looking for danger, looking for what is wrong, looking for what to be afraid of. And the more you scroll, the more your brain practices this way of seeing the world. It becomes a habit, a deeply wired one. And over time, your brain starts doing this even when you are not scrolling. You walk into a room, and your brain is scanning for threats. You meet someone new, and your brain is looking for reasons not to trust them. You think about your future, and your brain immediately gravitates toward everything that could go wrong. This is not pessimism. This is a brain that has been trained by hours of doom scrolling to see danger everywhere it looks. The limbic system and the left hemisphere. Arthur Brooks goes into the neuroscience here, and it is important to understand. The brain has two main systems that are relevant to this chapter. The first is the limbic system. This is the emotional part of the brain. It is fast. It is reactive. It is designed to respond to threats before you have time to think. When you see something scary, upsetting, or outrageous, the limbic system fires immediately. It grabs your attention. It holds it. It will not let go. The second is the left hemisphere. This is the part of the brain that deals with language, logic, and narrative. It helps you make sense of things. It helps you build a coherent story about your life. It helps you think about meaning. Now here is the problem. The limbic system is much faster and much louder than the left hemisphere. When negative content hits your feed, the limbic system screams, and the left hemisphere quietly goes quiet. Social media is built to trigger the limbic system over and over again, because an activated limbic system keeps scrolling, it keeps watching, it keeps clicking, and every click is data. Every click is revenue. Your outrage, your fear, your anxiety is the product being sold. Distractions do not just waste time. Here is where this chapter becomes truly important. Arthur Brooks says, distraction is not just a productivity problem. It is a meaning problem. Think about what meaning requires. Coherence, the ability to look at your life and see a story. Purpose, the ability to feel pulled forward by something that matters. Significance, the ability to feel that your presence makes a real difference. All three of these require depth. They require the brain to slow down, to go inward, to sit with something long enough to understand it. But distraction is the enemy of depth. Every time you pick up your phone and lose 30 minutes to scrolling, you are not just losing 30 minutes. You are training your brain to avoid depth, to skip the slow, to run from the quiet. And the quiet is exactly where meaning lives. Meaning does not arrive in the middle of a busy feed. It arrives when you sit still long enough to hear it. Distraction makes that impossible. Real leisure and fake leisure. Arthur Brooks makes a very clear distinction in this chapter. He talks about the difference between real leisure and fake leisure. Fake leisure is what most people reach for when they are tired. Scrolling, binge watching, mindlessly consuming content. It feels like rest, but it is not rest. Your brain is still being stimulated, still being triggered, still being pulled from one thing to the next. You finish 2 hours of scrolling, and you feel more depleted than when you started, because your brain never actually rested. It just shifted from one kind of noise to another. Real leisure is completely different. Real leisure is an activity that genuinely restores you, something that requires a little gentle effort, but gives back far more than it takes. A walk in nature, a real conversation with someone you care about, reading something that makes you think slowly, playing music, cooking a meal with full attention, praying or meditating. These activities do something that scrolling never can. They give the deeper parts of your brain a chance to breathe, to process, to reconnect with what matters. And in that space, meaning quietly resurfaces. Not because you searched for it, but because you finally stopped running from it. The choice you make every day. Arthur Brooks is not telling you to throw away your phone. He is not saying that technology is purely evil. He is pointing to something much more specific. He is saying that every time you choose fake leisure over real leisure, you are making a choice against meaning. You are choosing noise over depth, stimulation over restoration, distraction over the quiet where your real life is waiting for you. And you make this choice dozens of times a day, without thinking, without realizing what you are giving up. The doom loop of distraction is not something that happens to you. It is something you step into. And the moment you understand that, you can step out, not perfectly, not all at once, but one choice at a time. One moment of real rest chosen over fake rest. One walk instead of a scroll. One real conversation instead of a comment section. One quiet evening instead of 3 hours of noise. These small choices do not feel dramatic, but they add up, and slowly they rebuild the capacity for depth, the capacity for meaning, the capacity to sit still long enough to hear what your life is actually trying to tell you. This was Chapter 5 of The Meaning of Your Life by Arthur C. Brooks. Chapter 6 is next, and it tackles something that most people underestimate completely. The people in your life, not followers, not contacts, not connections on a screen, real friends. And Arthur Brooks reveals why the kind of friendships you have right now may be quietly costing you your meaning. Chapter 6 is one you will not want to miss. Chapter 6. Real friends versus deal friends. Think about your phone right now. How many contacts do you have? Maybe hundreds. Maybe more. Now think about something else. If something terrible happened to you tonight, not a small problem, something real, something that broke you. How many of those people could you call at midnight? How many of them would actually pick up? How many of them know the real you? Not the version of you that shows up at work. Not the version of you on social media. The real you. The one with fears. The one with doubts. The one who is not always okay. For most people, that list is very short. Sometimes it is empty. And Arthur Brooks says that emptiness is one of the biggest reasons so many people feel that their life lacks meaning. Because meaning cannot exist without genuine connection. And genuine connection is becoming one of the rarest things in the modern world. Two kinds of friends. Arthur Brooks draws a very clear distinction in this chapter. He says there are two kinds of friends, deal friends and real friends. Most people have mostly deal friends, and very few real ones. Let us understand both. A deal friend is someone in your life for a reason. Colleague who is friendly at work. A neighbor you wave at in the morning. Someone from your gym who you chat with between sets. A contact who might be useful someday. These relationships are not bad. They are not fake. They are real connections. But they are built on something functional, on usefulness, on proximity, on shared circumstance. And when the circumstance changes, when you leave the job, move away, or stop going to the gym, the connection quietly disappears. Because it was never about you as a person. It was about the deal you both had, the context that brought you together. A real friend is completely different. A real friend knows you. Not what you do. Not what you can offer. Not your job title or your achievements or your social media presence. They know who you actually are. Your history. Your struggles. Your values. Your embarrassing moments. Your quiet fears. And they choose to be in your life not because of any deal, but because of you. Arthur Brooks says real friendships are built on three things: admiration, common values, and a genuine concern for each other's well-being. Not just good times. Real care. The kind that shows up when things are hard. The kind that tells you the truth even when it is uncomfortable. The kind that stays when there is nothing to gain. The loneliness epidemic. Here is something that the research now confirms very clearly. The world is experiencing a loneliness epidemic. Not a small trend. An epidemic. In surveys across multiple countries and age groups, a growing number of people report having no close friends. No one who truly knows them. No one they can be completely honest with. The numbers are alarming. In the United States alone, the number of people who say they have no close friends has quadrupled in the last few decades. And Arthur Brooks connects this directly to the rise in meaninglessness. Because loneliness does not just hurt emotionally. It does something much more serious. It removes one of the most essential sources of meaning from a person's life. Significance, that sense that your presence matters, that you are truly known and valued, cannot exist without real connection. When you are deeply lonely, you can be surrounded by people and still feel completely invisible. You can be at a party and feel more alone than you would sitting in an empty room. Because the people around you do not really know you. And you do not really know them. And somewhere inside you know the difference. Social media connections are not the same. Here is where Arthur Brooks challenges something that most people believe. Most people think that staying connected on social media counts as maintaining friendship. It does not. Brooks is very direct about this. A like on a post is not the same as a real conversation. Watching someone's stories is not the same as sitting with them. Commenting on a photo is not the same as being present in someone's actual life. Social media connections are almost always deal connections. They are built on shared content, not shared lives. And the brain knows this. even when you have thousands of followers, even when people engage with everything you post, the deeper need for real knowing goes unfilled. Because the brain is not looking for attention from strangers. It is looking for genuine understanding from someone who is truly there. And every hour spent maintaining surface connections online is an hour not spent deepening the real ones that actually matter. What real friendships do for meaning. Arthur Brooks says real friendships are one of the most powerful sources of meaning available to any human being. And he is very specific about why. Real friends give you coherence. They remember your story. They remind you of who you were when you forget. They help the chapters of your life connect to each other. Real friends give you purpose. When someone truly knows you and believes in you, your goals feel more real. Your efforts feel more worth it. You have someone to be accountable to. Someone whose respect actually means something. Real friends give you significance. When someone chooses to be in your life, not for what you offer, but for who you are, you feel it deeply. That feeling that you matter to someone for no transactional reason is one of the most powerful, meaning-producing experiences a human being can have. And it is available to everyone. But it requires something that the modern world keeps trying to shortcut. It requires time, vulnerability, showing up even when it is inconvenient, saying the hard thing instead of the comfortable one, being known in the places where you are not perfect. What you can do right now. Arthur Brooks does not leave you with a diagnosis and no prescription. He gives you something practical. He says, look at your life honestly. Ask yourself how many real friends you actually have. Not contacts, not followers, not people you know professionally. Chapter 7. Love, Transcendence, and Significance. There is a moment that most people have experienced at least once. A moment so powerful that time seems to stop. Maybe it was the first time you fell in love. Maybe it was holding a newborn child. Maybe it was standing at the edge of an ocean or on top of a mountain and feeling something vast and quiet wash over you. Maybe it was a piece of music that reached somewhere inside you that words never could. In that moment, something happened. You forgot yourself. Your worries disappeared. Your problems felt small. The noise of your daily life went completely silent. And in that silence you felt something. Something that is very hard to name. But something that felt more real than anything else. Arthur Brooks says that feeling has a name. It is called transcendence. And in this chapter, he argues that transcendence is one of the most powerful and most overlooked sources of meaning available to every human being. What transcendence actually means. Transcendence is not a religious word that belongs only to people of faith. Arthur Brooks is careful about this. He defines transcendence simply. Transcendence is the experience of feeling connected to something larger than yourself, something that goes beyond your own story, your own needs, your own small daily concerns. When you are completely absorbed in loving another person, you are experiencing transcendence. When you are moved by the suffering of a stranger, you are experiencing transcendence. When you feel part of something ancient and larger, whether through prayer, nature, music, or service, you are experiencing transcendence. The self shrinks for a moment, and something bigger fills the space. And in that moment, meaning floods in. Brooks says the human soul was designed for this. Not for comfort, not for safety, not for ease, for expansion, for connection to something beyond the self. And a life, lived entirely within the walls of the self, is a life that will always feel small, no matter how much is inside those walls. Romantic love and meaning. Arthur Brooks shares something personal in this chapter. He talks about his own marriage, about what it has meant to his understanding of meaning and purpose. He says real romantic love is one of the most powerful, transcendent experiences available to human beings, not because it feels good, but because real love requires you to place someone else's well-being above your own comfort, to choose another person even on the days when that is hard, to be truly known by someone, and to truly know them. Brooks points out that most people approach romantic relationships the same way they approach consumer decisions. They look for someone who meets their needs, who makes them feel good, who gives them what they want. And the moment that stops happening, they look elsewhere. But this approach treats love as a deal. And deals, as we learned in Chapter 6, never produce the depth of meaning that real connection does. Real love is not a transaction. It is a commitment to another person's flourishing, to building something together that neither of you could build alone. And when you love that way, your life stops being only about you. And the moment your life stops being only about you, meaning enters. The conversation with the Dalai Lama, one of the most remarkable sections of this entire book, is Arthur Brooks' account of his conversations with the Dalai Lama. Brooks spent time speaking with the Dalai Lama about happiness, meaning, and spiritual life, and what the Dalai Lama told him stayed with Brooks deeply. He said that the root of most human suffering is attachment to the self, the belief that our own comfort, our own success, our own happiness is the most important thing. And when that belief drives a life, no amount of success ever feels like enough, because the self is a container with a hole in it. You can keep pouring things in, achievement, pleasure, status, and it will keep leaking out. But when a person turns their energy outward, toward the well-being of others, toward something that will outlast them, toward a love or a purpose that is bigger than their own story, the hole closes, not completely, not permanently, but enough. Enough to feel that life has weight and direction. Enough to feel that being here matters. Brooks connects this to the neuroscience. Research shows that acts of generosity, service, and compassion activate the same reward pathways in the brain as pleasure. But with a crucial difference. Pleasure fades quickly. The reward from helping others lasts far longer. It does not trigger the same dopamine drop that achievement does. It produces a deeper and more sustained sense of well-being, because it connects you to something beyond yourself. And that connection is exactly what meaning requires. Spiritual life and meaning. Arthur Brooks does not tell you what to believe. He is not asking you to adopt any particular religion or any specific spiritual practice. But he is direct about what the research shows. People with an active spiritual life, whether through prayer, meditation, religious practice, or a deep sense of connection to something sacred, report higher levels of meaning than those without. They experience less depression, less anxiety, less fear of death, more resilience in the face of suffering, more genuine connection to the people around them. This is not because spiritual people are naive. It is not because faith is a comfortable illusion. It is because spiritual practice consistently does one thing that everything else in the modern world is designed to undo. It forces the self to get small. It reminds you regularly and deliberately that you are part of something vast and ancient, that your life is connected to lives before you and lives after you, that what you do here with this time in this body echoes outward in ways you will never fully see, and that reminder is one of the most powerful generators of meaning that human beings have ever discovered. Significance and the impact of your presence. The final piece of this chapter is significance. And Brooks brings it home with something simple and honest. Significance does not require fame. It does not require a legacy in the conventional sense. It does not require that history remember your name. Significance is simply the knowledge that your presence in this world has touched something, has made someone's life a little better, has added something real to the lives of the people who are close to you. Think about the people who have most shaped you. The ones whose words you still carry, whose love you still feel, whose example still guides you. Most of them are not famous. Most of them were never on any stage. They were just people who showed up, who cared genuinely, who lived with integrity and love. And they changed you. That is significance. And every single person reading this right now is capable of exactly that. You do not need a platform. You do not need an audience. You need people who are close enough to feel the warmth of who you actually are. And you need to give that warmth freely and consistently. Brooks says a life of significance is built one small act of genuine love at a time. One honest conversation. One act of service. One moment of choosing someone else's need over your own comfort. These moments may feel small when they happen, but they accumulate, and eventually they become a life that people will remember, not because it was grand, but because it was real, and full, and generous. This was Chapter 7 of The Meaning of Your Life by Arthur C. Brooks. Chapter 8 is next, and it takes everything we have explored so far and applies it to the question of work. Most people spend more waking hours at work than doing anything else in their life, and yet most people have never asked whether their work is truly aligned with their deepest purpose. Arthur Brooks introduces the idea of vocation, and it is one of the most transformative ideas in the entire book. Chapter 8 is next. Chapter 8. Your True Calling, Vocation. Most people spend over 90,000 hours of their life at work. 90,000 hours. That is more time than almost anything else a human being does. More time than sleeping. More time than being with family. More time than any hobby or pleasure. And yet most people have never once asked a single serious question about whether their work is truly aligned with the deepest part of who they are. They chose a career because it paid well, or because someone suggested it, or because it seemed stable, or because it was what people like them were expected to do. And then they spent decades there, 90,000 hours, waiting for Friday, counting down to retirement, going through the motions, wondering in quiet moments if this is really what their life was supposed to look like. Arthur Brooks says it does not have to be this way, because there is a difference between a job and a vocation, and that difference changes everything. What vocation actually means. The word vocation comes from the Latin word vocare. It means to call. A vocation is not just a job. A vocation is a calling. It is work that connects to something deep inside you. Work that uses your specific gift. Work that serves something beyond yourself. Work that, even on the hard days, feels like it means something. Arthur Brooks says a vocation has 3 qualities. First, it uses your strength. Not the skills that your resume lists. Your real strength. The things that come naturally to you. The things that other people have to work hard for that feel almost effortless to you. Second, it serves others. A vocation is not just about personal fulfillment. It connects to something bigger. It makes someone else's life a little better. It adds something real to the world. Third, it aligns with your values. The work reflects what you actually believe in, what you care about, what you would choose even if you were not being paid. When all 3 of these come together, work transforms. It is no longer something you do to earn money. It becomes something you are called to do. And the difference in how that feels is impossible to overstate. Viktor Frankl and the Search for Meaning. Arthur Brooks brings one of the most powerful stories ever told about meaning and work into this chapter. The story of Viktor Frankl. Viktor Frankl was a Jewish psychiatrist living in Vienna in the 1940s. He had built a remarkable career. He had ideas that were changing the field of psychology. He had a family, a life full of promise. And then the Nazis came. Frankl was arrested. He was sent to Auschwitz, one of the most brutal concentration camps in the history of the world. He lost his wife, his parents, his brother, his manuscripts, everything that his life had been built on. He was stripped of every external thing a human being can possess. And in that place where hope seemed impossible, Frankl made a discovery so powerful that it became one of the most important books ever written about the human condition. He discovered that meaning cannot be taken from you, even when everything else is gone. He observed the people around him. Some of them gave up quickly, even when they were physically strong, because they had lost their reason to live. But others, who were physically weaker, survived, not because of luck, because they had something to live for, a purpose, a person they needed to return to, a book they needed to finish, a truth they needed to share with the world. Frankl wrote that the last of human freedoms is the freedom to choose your attitude in any set of circumstances, to choose what meaning you will attach to what is happening to you. And in the concentration camp, that freedom was the only one they could not take from him. Arthur Brooks uses Frankl's story to make a point that applies to every person, in every workplace, in every kind of life. Your work does not have to be extraordinary for it to have meaning. Your calling does not have to be grand, but it has to be chosen, consciously, deliberately, with the understanding that meaning is not something your work gives you. It is something you bring to your work. Work is not your whole life. Here is something important that Arthur Brooks is careful to address. He does not say that your work should be your entire identity. He does not say that you should sacrifice everything at the altar of your career. In fact, he says the opposite. A vocation is one part of a full life, a life with real friendship, a life with love and transcendence, a life with rest and beauty and spiritual depth. When work becomes the only source of meaning, it becomes a tyrant. It demands everything, and gives back diminishing returns. Brooks says the goal is to optimize your whole life for meaning, not just your career, your relationships, your inner life, your health, your community, your spiritual practice, all of it working together. Work is a vital thread, but it is one thread in a much larger tapestry. When you treat it as the whole tapestry, the other threads begin to fray, and the meaning starts to unravel. How to find meaning in your work right now. Arthur Brooks does not just leave you with the idea of vocation and walk away. He gives you practical guidance, and it starts with a simple and honest question. Ask yourself, in my current work, what am I actually doing for someone else? Not for yourself, not for your career. What is your work adding to another person's life? Even the most ordinary work has an answer to this question. The cleaner who makes a hospital safer for patients. The driver who gets a family home safely. The teacher who notices the one student no one else is looking at. The accountant who helps a family worry less about their finances. Every kind of work can be a vocation, if you approach it as service, if you bring your real self to it, if you connect it to something beyond the paycheck. The second question Brooks asks is this: what in your work connects to your genuine strength? Not what you are trained for. Not what your job description says. What do you do that feels natural? What part of your work gives you energy instead of draining it? Find that. Protect it. Build toward it. Because when your strengths meet the needs of others, that intersection is where vocation lives, and where meaning reliably follows. The shift that changes everything. Frankl survived Auschwitz. He came out and wrote his book. A book that has sold over 16 million copies. A book that has given meaning to millions of people who had nearly lost theirs. He did not survive because he was strong. He survived because he had a vocation, a calling, something that needed him to be alive. And he chose to answer that call. Every single day. In the darkest place on earth. You are not in a concentration camp. Your circumstances are not his. But the principle is the same. When your work becomes a calling, when it connects to your strengths, your service, and your values, something shifts. You stop waiting for Friday. You stop counting down to retirement. You stop going through the motions. You wake up and the day feels like it is going somewhere. Like you are going somewhere. Like the hours you spend working and creating and serving actually matter. And that is not a small thing. That is a life worth waking up for. This was Chapter 8 of The Meaning of Your Life by Arthur C. Brooks. Chapter 9 is coming next, and it explores one of the most unexpected and most important aspects of meaning: suffering, beauty, and the mysterious. Arthur Brooks reveals why the most meaningful lives are not the ones that avoid pain, but the ones that learn to find something real inside it. Chapter 9. Beauty, Suffering, and the Mysterious. Have you ever cried at something beautiful? Not something sad. Something beautiful. A piece of music that suddenly made everything feel deeply true. A sunset so perfect it hurt to look at. A moment of extraordinary kindness between two strangers. A parent watching their child do something for the first time. These moments do not make logical sense. Nothing bad has happened. Nobody has been hurt. And yet, something inside you breaks open. Tears come. Not from pain. From something else. Something that is very hard to name. Arthur Brooks calls this moral beauty. And in this chapter, he argues that these moments, the ones that make you cry because they are so true, so real, so undeniably good, are not just emotional reactions. They are signposts, pointing you toward meaning. What moral beauty is, Arthur Brooks makes a careful distinction in this chapter. There is physical beauty, a beautiful face, a beautiful landscape, a beautiful building. These things are pleasant to look at, but they do not necessarily reach inside you. They do not break you open. Then there is moral beauty. Moral beauty is different. It is the beauty of something that is true and good and right. It is the beauty of a person who sacrifices for someone they love. It is the beauty of a moment when someone does the harder right thing instead of the easier wrong one. It is the beauty of a human being in their fullest and most genuine expression. And when you witness moral beauty, your body reacts, your throat tightens, your eyes fill, your chest expands. Brooks says this reaction is not weakness. It is wisdom. It is your soul recognizing something real, something that matters, something that your daily life is often too noisy and too fast to let you feel. And when you feel it, even for just a moment, the emptiness retreats, because you are in contact with something true. And truth is one of the foundations of meaning. The role of suffering in meaning. Here is where this chapter becomes deeply important and deeply challenging, because Arthur Brooks says something that most people do not want to hear. Suffering is not the enemy of meaning. Avoiding suffering is. We live in a world that treats discomfort as a problem to be solved. Pain appears, and we immediately reach for something to make it stop. Scroll the phone, drink something, eat something, watch something, anything to not feel what we are feeling. But Brooks says when you do that, when you run from every form of suffering, you also run from one of the most powerful paths to meaning. He draws on the work of Viktor Frankl again here. Frankl said that suffering loses its power to destroy you the moment you find a meaning in it, the moment you can say, this pain is teaching me something, this loss is shaping me into something stronger, this difficulty is the price of something that matters to me. When you attach meaning to suffering, the suffering does not disappear, but it transforms. It becomes something you can carry, something that, instead of hollowing you out, builds depth inside you. The people who have lived through the greatest pain, and come out not bitter, but wiser, are almost always people who chose to find meaning inside the difficulty, not after it, inside it. While it was happening. That is not easy. But it is possible. And it is one of the most meaningful things a human being can do. The right hemisphere and the mysterious. Arthur Brooks spends time in this chapter on the neuroscience of wonder and mystery. And it connects to something very specific in the brain. The right hemisphere. We often hear that the left hemisphere handles language and logic. And this is true. The left brain is orderly. It categorizes. It explains. It simplifies. It likes things that fit neatly into known patterns. But the right hemisphere is different. The right hemisphere handles context. It holds the big picture. It processes experiences that cannot be fully explained. Beauty. Mystery. The sense that something is larger than your ability to understand it. When you stand in front of something vast and ancient, a cathedral, a mountain range, a starlit sky, the ocean at night, the right hemisphere activates, and something very specific happens in the brain. The self gets smaller, not in a bad way, in a necessary way. The brain shifts from its usual mode of self-focused thinking into something more open, more connected, more willing to sit with questions that have no easy answers. And in that state, meaning becomes more accessible, not because you figured it out, but because you stopped insisting that everything needs to be figured out. Brooks says one of the most important practices for a meaningful life is to regularly put yourself in the presence of things that are bigger than you, things that make you feel small in the best way, things that activate that right hemisphere wonder, and remind you that the world is far more mysterious and magnificent than your daily routine would ever suggest. Chopping wood and carrying water. Arthur Brooks introduces one of the most beautiful ideas in this entire chapter. Comes from an ancient Zen saying, before enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. After enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. On the surface this seems strange. If enlightenment changes nothing, what is the point? But the meaning is deeper. The tasks do not change. The wood still needs to be chopped. The water still needs to be carried. The dishes still need to be washed. The children still need to be fed. The work still needs to be done. But the person doing them has changed. They are no longer doing these things as a burden, or as something to get through on the way to something better. They are doing them as a practice, as a form of presence, as an expression of care and meaning. Brooks says this is one of the most profound shifts a person can make, not changing what you do, but changing how you relate to what you do. Finding, in the ordinary moments of your daily life, the chopping wood, the carrying water, the washing dishes, the making breakfast, the driving to school. Something sacred. Something worthy of your full attention. Something that, when done with love and presence, becomes a form of meaning in itself. This is not a romanticization of hard work. This is a practical truth. The most meaningful lives are not necessarily the most dramatic ones. They are often the quietest ones, lived with full attention, full presence, full care, in the ordinary moments that most people rush through without noticing. What this means for your own life. Arthur Brooks brings this chapter home with a question. He asks you to think about the last time you encountered something that moved you, something that made you cry because it was beautiful, or something that, in the middle of difficulty, felt strangely meaningful. He asks you not to explain it away, not to rationalize it, but to sit with it, to let yourself feel the full weight of it, because those moments are not random. They are not emotional glitches. They are your soul making contact with the things that actually matter. And every time you pay attention to them, every time you stop long enough to feel the moral beauty around you, every time you sit with suffering instead of running from it, every time you do your ordinary tasks with love and full presence, you are practicing meaning. You are building the deepest and most lasting kind of fullness. The kind that does not depend on achievement, or recognition, or circumstances, the kind that lives inside you, in the places where beauty and suffering and mystery have been allowed to leave their mark. This was Chapter 9 of The Meaning of Your Life by Arthur C. Brooks. Only one chapter remains. Chapter 10 is the final one, and it is where Arthur Brooks brings everything together into a blueprint, a real, practical, honest map for starting your own pilgrimage toward meaning. Chapter 10 is where your journey truly begins. It is coming next. Chapter 10. The Pilgrimage, Your Journey to Meaning. A long time ago, people went on pilgrimages. They left their homes. They left their comfort. They walked, sometimes for weeks, sometimes for months, through difficult terrain, through uncertain weather, through physical pain and exhaustion. They did not know exactly what they would find at the end. They could not guarantee that the journey would change them. But they went anyway, because they understood something that the modern world has almost entirely forgotten. The destination was never the point. The walking was the point. The searching was the point. The willingness to leave the familiar and move toward something that mattered deeply. That was the point. Arthur Brooks closes this book with that image. And he says, finding the meaning of your life is not a problem to be solved. It is a pilgrimage to be walked. And the most important thing is not that you arrive somewhere. It is that you begin. Meaning is a journey, not a destination. This is the central truth of the final chapter. And it challenges one of the most deeply held modern assumptions. We are taught to treat everything like a project. Set the goal, make the plan, execute the step, achieve the outcome, move on. But meaning does not work that way. Meaning is not a box you tick. It is not a level you unlock. It is not a destination you reach and then stand in forever satisfied. Meaning is something you cultivate every day, through the choices you make, the relationships you invest in, the work you show up for, the suffering you sit with, the beauty you allow to move you, the questions you keep asking, even when the answers are slow to come. Arthur Brooks says, the moment you stop treating meaning as a destination and start treating it as a way of walking, everything changes, because you stop waiting for life to feel meaningful someday, and you start building meaning right now, in the ordinary Tuesday morning, in the difficult conversation you have been avoiding, in the 5 minutes of silence before the noise of the day begins. The pilgrimage starts where you are standing. Not somewhere else. Not someday. Here. Now. Where are you on the journey? Arthur Brooks gives his readers a way to honestly assess where they currently are. He asks you to think about the 3 macronutrients from Chapter 3: coherence, purpose, significance, and to honestly answer 3 questions. First, does my life make sense to me? Can I look at my story and see the thread connecting it? Can I find meaning in the painful chapters as well as the good ones? Or does my life feel random, like a series of unconnected events, without direction or reason? If coherence is missing, your first work is to find the story, not to rewrite history, but to look for the deeper thread that was always there. The growth that came from the hardest moment. The person you became because of what you went through. The way the chapters connect when you look at them honestly. Second, do I have something pulling me forward? Something I am genuinely living for? Not a vague wish. A real purpose. A direction that feels alive. A calling that uses your genuine strengths to serve something beyond yourself. If purpose is missing, your work is to start paying attention to the moments when you feel most alive, most engaged, most useful. Those moments are clues. They are pointing toward your vocation. Third, do I feel that I matter? That my presence makes a real difference to real people? That if I were gone, something in the world would be missing? If significance is missing, your work is to deepen your real connections, to show up more fully for the people who are already in your life, to give more of yourself and expect less in return, to serve in ways that have nothing to do with what you get back. These 3 questions are your compass. They will tell you, honestly and clearly, which parts of your pilgrimage need the most attention right now. The practical blueprint. Arthur Brooks does not leave you with beautiful ideas and no path forward. He gives you a blueprint, and it is built on everything this book has taught. The first step is to protect your attention. Choose every day to spend less time in the shallow and the noisy. Less doom scrolling. Less fake leisure. More real rest. More silence. More presence in the moments that actually matter. Your depth of attention is the foundation of everything else. Without it, the other steps cannot take hold. The second step is to invest in real friendships. Not contacts, not followers, real friends. The ones who know you, or the ones who could if you let them. Make time for the conversations that go beneath the surface. Be honest about how you are really doing. Ask others how they are really doing, and mean it. The third step is to find your vocation. Or if you cannot change your work right now, find the calling inside your current work. Ask what your work does for others. Bring your real strengths to what you already do, and connect it to something that matters to you beyond the paycheck. The fourth step is to practice transcendence. Regularly. Deliberately. Make time for the things that make you feel small in the best way. Prayer, meditation, nature, music, beauty, service. Whatever it is for you, do it not occasionally but consistently, because the self needs regular reminders that it is part of something larger. And the fifth step is to welcome suffering instead of fleeing from it. Not to seek it out, not to be reckless, but when it comes, and it will come, ask what it is teaching you. Ask what it is building in you. Ask what meaning you can find inside it, because the people who find the deepest meaning in life are almost always the people who have learned to find something real inside the hardest chapters. The question that starts everything: Arthur Brooks ends this book with the question he started with: what is the meaning of my life? And he says something that might surprise you. He says this question is not meant to be answered. It is meant to be lived with, to be carried, to be returned to again and again, in different seasons, with different eyes, as you grow and change and lose things and find things and love people and lose people. The question is a compass, not a destination. It does not point you to a fixed place and then stop being useful. It keeps pointing. Throughout your entire life, the person who keeps asking, who never decides that they have fully arrived, who keeps walking the pilgrimage, one honest step at a time. That person does not have a perfect life, but they have a meaningful one, and a meaningful life is far more powerful than a perfect one, because a perfect life is not available, but a meaningful one is, for everyone, right now. Meaning is not lost. Before this video ends, I want you to hear the most important thing Arthur Brooks says in this entire book. Meaning is not lost. It was never lost. It is waiting. It has always been waiting. In the quiet you keep running from. In the real friendships you have not fully allowed yourself to build. In the work you have not yet connected to your deepest purpose. In the suffering you have not yet found something real inside. In the beauty you have been moving past too fast to feel. In the mysterious you have been too busy to wonder at. It is all there, waiting for you, not at the end of the road, on the road itself, in the walking, in the searching, in the honest, daily, ordinary, imperfect act of refusing to stop asking, what is the meaning of my life? And then waking up the next day and asking again. That is the pilgrimage, and it is the most important journey you will ever take. This was the final chapter of The Meaning of Your Life by Arthur C. Brooks. If this complete series spoke to something real inside you, please like this video and share it with one person who needs to hear it today. Subscribe to Bookverse for more book summaries just like this one. Every book we cover is chosen to give you something real, something you can carry into your actual life. We will see you in the next one. And remember, the meaning of your life is not a question waiting for an answer. It is a road waiting for your footsteps. Start walking.